Occult Radio.
On at 9, I mean.
Yeah, you are now rocking with the best. You are now entering into A-Deuce territory. Comprised of Supernova Slum, the Medicine Man, I say the Duke of Tears. Been here for about 1 billion years. But we're about to get right into it right now. So yeah, Supernova Slum, let these niggas hear. Your hands no eyes here. What it took for us to get here. Grand in my center, grand representative. Southside, more stuff planet Brooklyn. Killing and killing my rhythm is getting. I'm beating you haters is where I'm from. Wait up for AR, I'm snaters, no fakers. Salute us, maneuver us, Sonic women group us. Who us, Supernova Slum. This here 7, all in our here. We the warriors men. On the Southeast clan, we got expand. That's like brain. Think about it coming in. Up, I'm in. Go play gangsta with the guys on my side. Make the dead come alive. 8-2-3-2, my eyes 4-2. High Heru. Heat up from the beat up. Get the seller to the streets. Beat suck. Hey, suck. Hey, suck. You know what it is. What it is. It's a personality. It's a king. 2 guns full with a script that got the chicks on them. They hey, suck. You know what it is. What it is. It's a personality. It's 2 kings. 2 guns full with a script that got the chicks. Well, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Aseer. Cause I'm a Duke of Tears, and I've been here for years. And I'm about to cold rock, cold shock your ears, and make your things disappear like it wasn't even there. Just listen to my words in a Bible of a head. And boom, it's like I'm there, taking away your fear that you thought was out there. It was really in here. Your ferocious like a bear, but I'm gentle like a dove. I always come prepared, cause I come from up above. Just a thug like I'm over ya. Live my life Victoria, just as big as I can. Show the crowd with my hands, make the dumb understand that it's the Duke of Tears and it's the medicine. Turn a whack jam into American bandstand. Have the party people doing handstand in Roseland. A's up, you know what it is. What it is. It's a systematic. It's a king. 2 guns full with a twist about it. 6 on them face. A's up, you know what it is. What it is. It's a systematic. It's 2 kings. 2 guns full with a twist about it. 6 on them face. A's up, you know what it is. What it is. It's a systematic. It's 2 kings. 2 guns full with a twist about it. 6 on them face. A's up, you know what it is. What it is. It's a systematic. It's 2 kings. 2 guns full with a twist about it. 6 on them face.
Peace, everybody. What's going on? It's your fine brother friend, Aseer the Duke of Tears, saying peace to everybody, along with my co-host, Selena, Empress of 10,000 Years, Saga Shah, who inshallah will be able to come in the show a little later, and Amor, who, thank God, is in the bed. We apologize for starting late, but for some reason, our friends at Blog Talk decided to unschedule our show, even though consistently we've been on every Monday since we started. But, you know, sometimes when you can be very consistent, sometimes the system gets tired of that and wants you to just be inconsistent for a minute. So I'm just glad we could be mutable. Thank you, everybody, for coming back in and holding us down. Anybody that got a search engine, Facebook or whatever, you could just put it out there just in case for those people who may have tried to come in and couldn't get in. We started half an hour late. Inshallah, we'll be back on our regular time, 9 o'clock, again, to keep killing them with the consistency, you know what I'm saying? You know how we like to do. But again, one monkey don't start no show. You know, don't stop no show. And, you know, we always do what we need to do to get where we need to go. So, again, thank you guys for tuning in and always holding us down, and everybody gave us a call, you know what I mean, find out if we were still going in. So, again, Twa and Turf to you. A lot of wild things going on. You know, we always start, we take it from the stellar to the streets, and then from the streets to the stellar. So we'll start on a material plane. We just went into this new moon in Leo. Leo is one of the most expansive planets in the zodiac. We are also in the second month of the Jason period, which, again, for our faithful listeners know that Jason represents July, August, September, October, November, which is one of the heaviest ritualistically charged murder periods throughout the year for those people who are involved in some of the covens and the Wiccan stuff that these people be working to put our people, get our people caught up in. You know, their little fake version of black magic. They refer to as white magic, as if one is, you know, more pristine or pure than the other. So also on top of that now, they allegedly done come up with a way out of their crisis, which is the actual default, open default of the United States and the eventual erosion of America into a third world country, because that's the purpose of this whole game that they're playing. If you get a book by a guy named Zbigniew Brzezinski called The Grand Chessboard, you will read about this period taking place. You will read about this period taking place in their history, you know what I'm saying? This is part of their plan to not only denationalize their own people, but to create a natural financial rift to allow them to be able to read down their system into a more streamlined totalitarian one. So, for instance, some of the little subtle things that they've done to change the country, you know what I mean, into this new thing is the fact that whether you know this or not, there has been an entire fleet of Russian submarines parked off the east coast of the United States for the past 5 years now. Also, the fact that the waterways and harbors in New York are not owned by the city of New York anymore. If you didn't know. All of that is under the jurisdiction of the Saudi Arabian family. Don't believe me? Go online, Google it. NSA will tell you. Same shit I'm telling you now. All of that is under the jurisdiction of a foreign government, specifically the Saudi government, specifically the same Saudi government that allegedly trained the niggas that came and they lied and said blew up their buildings for them. Same dudes they trained. You know what I'm saying? But in regards to who or what, this is what's going on. Also, everything in the United States is for sale right now. Everything. From your bridges, your monuments, your roads, your streets. Remember they used to have a Dr. Highway and all of that? It's next level now. Now you can straight up buy a stretch of highway and it belongs to you. That's because the actual destruction of the American economy is going to come in the years to come. This so-called financial crisis is the last crisis that they can specifically sustain without going totally default. And the reason why that they basically are trying to come up with a fictitious way to get out of default now is because of the fact that they are changing over the apparatus of government totally. So for those people who've been trying to set up a security contract trust stuff with the government through the Secretary of Treasury, as we've said, and may have been the only people who say this on any show, is the fact that there is no Department of Treasury, there is no United States Department of Treasury anymore. All of that has been ceded to the IMF. Therefore, when it comes to getting your chargeback money from, you're going to have to rework whatever paperwork that you're writing to get it, because I don't know how the IMF, who is the same people who swindled everybody out of their inheritance, why they're going to start writing people inheritance off and giving them unlimited credit. I've yet to still see the relevance of that, but it doesn't change the fact that, again, there is no such thing as that. Also, there have been legal cases, legal determinations that have come out recently that have basically alluded to the fact that the United States doesn't even have government employees anymore. You know what I'm saying? They don't even have a situation where they even have government employees where they can actively, say, okay, I'll work for government. So if that's the case and these people are not government employees, who are they? Why are they still functioning as that? Why are we still treating them as that? And how is this eventually going to play out? Because if these people never had the ability to enforce anything, why is it that we always allow them to enforce their positions on us? Also, for those people who don't know, they have switched the name of Washington, D.C. That is not Washington, D.C. anymore. That is now New Columbia. Now, for those people who remember William Cooper, bless the dead, who maybe has been the only white man that I ever know, again, I'll say it again, one of the only white men in my life ever told me the truth, and I didn't even know this dude. He basically came out, and when you read his book, Behold the Pale Horse, that I said everybody should reread again. If you haven't read it, read it. And if you have read it, reread it. Because there are a lot of things in that stuff, in that. I don't think so. There's a lot of things that have come to pass that's in that book that's still coming out right now and is very relevant. But in that, there's a passage where he talks about the new states of America being adopted after the actual financial destruction of the dollar. But what we're going to look at is the long-term destruction of the dollar, because this is a thing that has to take place over a series of time. So it's not like they're going to pull the dollar out of the system now, because for the system to totally restructure itself, they have to have a total nervous system in play, and they have yet to all agree what system that's going to be. So really what's happening now is that the government of the world are starting to retool themselves and start to redistribute themselves to figure out how they're going to rule over people on the earth now at a time when people on the earth are going to be more free than they ever have been in any other time in history. So I don't know how you're going to perpetually control people who are going to have the power to free themselves instantaneously and then still maintain your existence. So what that then means is that they're going to have to create a lot of more false flag things to pop it off, so that way they can get more and more people distracted of how they're reorganizing everything. So we all know that the United States only exists in Washington, D.C., and 4 square miles outside of its main branch. Therefore, the jurisdiction that was extended to the rest of the country came due to the acceptance of zip codes by those people through an artifice that they used to have called the Pony Express. Okay? So through that, they were able to extend the fictitious jurisdiction over those people who were not down with the United States by getting them to accept free mail. Because there was a court case, again, going back to the beginnings of when, around the time when people were starting to rise against this little federal thing being created. You have people who are against that. And these people basically filed petitions. And so it was stated in one of these petitions that in their law, that whatever the government, the United States, created, it could then own, even though it itself is a fiction. For it created zip codes which conferred false jurisdiction, but extended the jurisdiction 10 miles square outside of the main branch, which then meant that if you accepted it at your house, then the jurisdiction of Washington, D.C. extended to your house. You see? So the federal government itself is really just an aberration of something that had to be created because we had to give jobs or whatever to these things, because up until then, they weren't even really considered human like that. And I know it sounds harsh or whatever, but it's the truth. You know what I mean? So with this whole de facto thing that they got coming down the pike and every God knows whatever else, you know what I'm saying, they got to continue to understand why and how it was redistributed. And then maybe how they can find a way to redistribute it back to themselves, which is not going to happen. So the new thing is, again, they want to get everybody prepped and hyped, because now we're going back into the early 80s where nuclear war was now on the table, and everybody else was basically kind of consumed with the idea of the fact that they are going to deal with what they refer to as MAD. MAD is an acronym for the words mutually assured destruction. So this is the premise of what keeps them allegedly from nuking each other, for the fact that they know that once the first nuke goes off, everybody is basically gone. But you got to remember the very premise of what they consider the so-called New World Order to be, you got to remember, is not what we watch in the movies. What we watch in the movies is a society created after the destruction of everything else. So what they want to do, like I said, is to not just take over. That's a side hustle from what it is they want to do. What they really want to do is get everybody basically to be totally desolated and totally destroyed and totally just remnants of what the world or what society could be. That's the people, that's the society that they want to exist in. And the survivors or whoever left after the great destruction or cataclysm or whatever, however they want to word it or put it in, those then become the people that they use to become the bulwark or the basis of the so-called New World Order. Because those people will be pacified and scared and traumatized to such a degree that they will be more easily manageable than those of us who survived in the world as it is right now. So when we talk about so-called, or when they talk about the so-called end of the world, they're not talking about the end of the world. You know what I'm saying? There can never be no end to something that they did not create. So because they did not create it, they cannot have the ability to stop it. Understand? So what they want to do is get people like us to destroy it ourselves, to make it so hard and so premise forming, so that way we don't give a damn. So the way that they choose to do that is by desensitizing human beings to their own, desensitizing man and woman to their own divinity and making them feel smaller and more minuscule as to who and what they really are. And then this same modus operandi, all right? So we have to go food shopping or wherever it is, man. So, you know what I mean? So it becomes this whole thing about us really trying to figure out, like, get on the same page as to why and how this thing deteriorated to where it's at. You know what I'm saying? So this so-called debt ceiling that they need to extend has to be passed by tonight. If not, they go into default, which means the credit rating of the United States then goes into free fall. But the problem is, according to some people still believe that the federal government, the United States, is the only one on the landmass, on a geographic location, and that's not true. So you have people who want to get out of the system, but they don't necessarily know which United States that they're functioning from or under. We as indigenous people are not in the so-called United States of America. Never have been. Even if you are born here, right? Even if you're not born here, if you're a so-called regulated or known to be an indigenous person, meaning an ethnic person, meaning a melanated person, meaning a person that is not quote-unquote Caucasian, then you're indigenous here. Jamaicans are indigenous to the Americas. Bahamians are indigenous to the Americas. People who call themselves Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Haitians, they're all native to the Americas. That's why you have a place in New York called the Island of the Americas, where you got every island consulate represented in America, even though they're from necessarily a different government. But those governments are all under the yoke of the United States, because the United States uses humanitarian aid as a means to extend its fictitious jurisdiction over everybody and everything. So this is why the so-called the people that we call Caucasians are really not from here, and they never have been here. Even if they were born here, even if you're born here, when you go all the way back to your ancestor that came over here on that boat, that means that you're not from here. Yet still, these people are the ones talking about immigration reform and immigration control. But immigration and all of that all comes in as another aspect of demoralizing and dehumanizing the so-called American populace and turning it against itself. You got to remember, when they was building the railroads, they was killing Chinese people like crazy. They was cutting their heads off, rolling them down the track. They was doing all types of shit to them. When Japan bombed the United States, which they knew about and let happen, they interned the Japanese and anybody who was affiliated with them. Just like when Move in Philadelphia tried to do something to betterment themselves or hold down their community, the state ordered in the National Guard, and they dropped bombs. They dropped F-16 bombs on a whole city block. I think on like 2 square city blocks in Philly, man, in the late 60s, early 70s, man. Jet fighters dropped bombs on an American city, the same way they did in Black Wall Street. In Black Wall Street, they actually jumped into crop dusters, created kerosene bombs, and flew over Black Wall Street and was dropping them on that. Terrorism. This is how Western society has allowed itself to progress into the future, through terrorism. But terrorism is a two-pronged word. It's a word with a double meaning. It means terror, like scared, and it means terror, like earth. Because Latin, terra, T-E-R-R-A, is earth. Terror, you know what I'm saying, is a homonym, right? They're homonym words, and so they sound the same. However, they both use these. Your government, well, excuse me, not your government, but these people's government use these words interchangeably. So when they talk about the war on terror, they're talking about the war on earth, period. But when they say that we're fighting terrorists, they're talking about themselves in a proxy guise of somebody else. So now the new shit, based on what happened in the Norway thing, is the white Al-Qaeda. But the white Al-Qaeda, in reality, is really just the intelligence agency of CIA and everybody else, because they're the ones who basically farmed these dudes and created all of discord in the world. You understand what I'm saying? So this, coupled with the whole satellite thing, coupled with the Elenin thing, coupled with now that we're going to go into Mercury retrograde, I think tomorrow at 11:50. So now is not the time for you to be entering into, different agreements with different people based on situations. However, if the agreement is based on getting past something and correcting something, retrogrades are excellent for correction. They're the best time to correct past things. So then you can work. Now is the time when we need to, those of us that are in the consciousness, need to practice active listening more so than aggressive communication, because you're not going to be heard clearly. It's not going to happen. Look what happened to me tonight. And we're not even fully in it. We haven't even really got into it yet. So this is how these things are starting to play out. So again, if retrograde is not necessarily the best time to get into shit like this, it's very interesting that they're going to be signing their document under a Mercury retrograde. Do you understand that it's not going to turn out the way that they want? That everything that they're telling people that they're coming to grips with, They're not going to find out until way later. But see, what happens is the American people never go back and try to prosecute these presidents and these politicians and these people that are leading them into the fire. They don't do that. Like, nobody's going, the impeach Bush movement, you know, that's still going on, but ain't anybody going to do that. The only thing that happened with that was when the homie, whoever he was, I don't know the guy's name, but he found out where George Bush lived and basically drove his truck, tried to hit him, tried to crash his car into his house. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. But based on, again, George Bush's niggerization of Caucasian people, you know what I mean, in terms of creating the first time ever in foreign policy that you openly go and attack people that never did nothing to you. You understand? And they still didn't declare war on them. The United States has not declared war on any country since 1933. Yet still, the United States is in over 150 intermittent conflicts all over the planet. Now, but we're not even talking about from 1933 to now, how many wars that they've been involved to help instigate and everything else. So before you go fight somebody, you're supposed to declare it to them as a nation. But again, the United States is not a nation. It's a national government organization, meaning it has the appearance of a nation. It can be construed as a nation, but how it operates itself is not. So the premise of getting everything in order is there. It's just that the shit is so convoluted that a lot of people, it's like, where do you start? So like with anything else, you got to start with self and then understand, you know, where it is and what your level of involvement is going to be in terms of figuring out where you stand in all of it. Because essentially we all stand in the same place, and that is within the realm of the Most High, no matter where you are. Even when you're in a courtroom, even when you're in somewhere, even when you're in somebody else's house, you still in your house. Your house is your body, your temple, your kingdom. But what we have been trained to do is make ourselves relevant to the geographic location, as opposed to allowing the geographic location to show its relevancy to us. So the idea of if you don't vote, you don't have anything to say, I don't look at it like that. I look at it, if you vote for this dude and this dude is fucking up and doing what he's doing, then you are partly responsible in helping him do that because you voted him into the position to do that. So to me, voting can be equated to wearing a dress of someone, a woman wearing the dress picked out by a guy who raped her. You know what I'm saying? Yet electing, something totally you don't hear about electing until somebody is voted in. But voting and electing are two different things. Slaves vote, electors choose. We are the electors. So whether we voted or not, because everybody wanted this dude to become president, he had to do that, even if they didn't want that. At the time that this dude was coming in, the country was in revolt. At the time right before 9/11, we were about to go, the United States was about to go through the biggest wave of white-collar criminals being arrested and indicted and prosecuted than any other time since Prescott Bush got brought up on charges on trading with the Enemy Act. During his funding or help funding of the Nazis with Goldman Sachs. Yet still, most of the people running the finance department of the government all are former Goldman Sachs employees. So again, that means that the same Nazis, these white people got Nazis running their government, man. But the neo-Nazis are not down with them because the neo-Nazis are under the other assumption that these so-called white guys who are involved in government like that are really trying to put us in a higher position. When really they're only doing that to keep the so-called white people upset. So where there was racial bias, they created affirmative action. They got more black people who really weren't qualified and moved them up in positions to make other white people mad. So that way they could come out and say, see, we made everybody equal, but now we got to flip it. So now here it is in 2011, a white, technically an African American can be somebody, let's say Caucasian, then who, let's say, if you come from South Africa, you live in America, and you happen to be Caucasian, like Charlize Theron is an African American because she comes from South Africa. But South Africa itself is not really a country. That is the government that was created by the Boers, another version of the Aryans or whatever, who broke away from what Leopold and them was doing and focused on working to harvest the Zulu science, enslave the Zulus, use some of their genetics to help imbreed their genetics, and then move forward. That's why the Boers, they used to wear the red tunics, which was the red color of the Zulus. You know what I'm saying? Because the Zulu blood allegedly has traces of Martian blood in it. And so this is their way of harvesting the celestial energy or power through us by first trying to subjugate us, and then through forced treaties get into a position in which amalgamation, segregated amalgamation becomes the way of maintaining. And then once apartheid was set up, which is basically, how any American government is set up, any state government is set up, everybody lives in a different district and neighborhood. But in always the black neighborhoods, we always in the shanty towns and everything else. You know what I'm saying? So either way, all of this plays out in the use of race, which is another fictitious element, yet it is an element that is based on the genetic survival of a certain group of people. So in any minority, you have to create dissension in the majority to allow the minority then to create arms and things like that to better find ways to do away with its nemesis, the people. And all or most governments devolve into that status in which they start with the basis of the people. But in the seeds of the revolution is the seeds for the next one. You understand? So in the seeds of the so-called American Revolution is the inevitable, the same destructive seeds that are going to lead to the demise of it. Because just like what they did in Egypt, you had a group of people who had genuine gripes with the government and the dehumanization that the government was doing, but that government, again, was supported by the United States up until the year before the revolt. So the United States, so really they were rebelling against the United States, but what the United States would do is give Mubarak the money, give him the weapons, train him how to torture the people and all of that, but they do that from behind the scenes. So that way when the people flip on Mubarak, the United States can come up and say, see, well, yeah, he is a dictator instead of blah, blah, blah. So the same cycle then happens in which the people start the initial revolution and start to move things forward away from a totalitarian regime and start to allow themselves to aspire and think outside of the parameters of the fictitious laws and statutes and administrative remedies created by the fiction. Right when they're doing that, you have another group of so-called intelligence people who are within that group, sprinkled here and there, who are then coordinating how to move the people into a direction, and then they start to put other people in play. So that way these people could then rise to the head of the revolution and then become the leaders, and then the United States is right back in power again. But then the scapegoats, Mubarak and everybody else, is hung out to dry, like what they're trying to do with Gaddafi. This is politics. Politics is lies and acquisition. That's what it is. It's not about helping people. It's not about good government. All of that is window dressing. All of that is Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, and all of that. That's not real. Foreign policy is all about destabilizing nations so that way yours can rise above it and then eventually squander, take the resources, and enslave the people. Iraq is what is in the position that the United States was in during the so-called Wild Wild West. So the same way you had Billy the Kid out here, you got a Billy the Kid out there. Two Gun Sam, Annie Oakley, and all these people, you got them. Only thing is 2011, and these people's names be like Raheem and Ahmed and Shaheed or whatever, because they Muslims and Arabs. You kind of think. You know what I'm saying? So the top three space agencies, NASA, NASA, which is now existing as the JPL, which is the Japanese Space League or whatever. The United States basically runs Japan in that way. And then on top of them, you got the FKA, which is the Russian version. All three of them is at each other's throats behind the element thing, because it's disrupting people. It's disrupting radio waves, frequencies and stuff, which is then distorting how they're able to establish grounding. So now they have to step up protocols where they have to check and recheck and recheck and recheck the coordinates on the compasses, because the magnetic pole has shifted to such a degree that, they'll be mid-air and the whole coordinate, the whole scope will gyro out. And they don't know where they're at, where they're going, and anything else. So, again, they're trying to come up with new ways to do that. Another thing to look for is that eventually the TSA is going to be the airlines. It's going to be not only the security for the airlines, it's going to be the airlines, period. Because when you spell TSA backwards, that's OST. So you're talking about if you're looking at it on a symbolic level, OST is the essence that flies from the ruach, which is the breath and the spirit of the earth, i.e. the black woman, i.e. creation. So flying, as an aspect of OST, being an air spirit, also connected to the sky, they are working to establish not only dominion in the air, but the problem is that they are all functioning under different levels. So airspace, you have what you're hearing about, what they're referring to as airspace foreclosures, where people have been lax on paying for their airspace, or getting their airspace paid for, and then the airspace is being repossessed. So certain planes can't fly over certain buildings in certain places because people's foreclosing on the airspace. You understand? The world is so big, yet they want to reduce it and make everything so segmented and boundaried off that, but then at the same time, they want the people to be totally open and readily inhabitable for whatever agenda they see fit to work to exploit on everybody. You know what I mean? So again, the fact that they're working to flip this on a retrograde is, it's really not. It's not in the spirit. We also talked about a little while ago. You have the Arab youth. They're working to set up what they're trying to refer to as a 1,000,000-man march across the entire so-called Middle East, where men from different countries basically all get together under the premise of Islam, just like Hajj, I guess, but more politically motivated, and basically circumvent and work to kind of unite the different people of the different countries, because they're starting to realize that all of the governments have basically been under the jurisdiction of the UK or the US or Israel since they were founded. The oldest dynasty out there is the Saud, and they only been there since 1914. The second oldest would be the Assad dynasty from Syria, and they only been there maybe 30 years, 30, no longer than 40 years. But I would say even lower than that, like maybe 32 years or whatever. That's why they bugging out now. And they all bugging now at the United States because they know that the United States been the one training them how to kill these people and all that. Half of the rendition centers that the U.S. was using half of them was in Albania, and then the other ones was in Egypt under Mubarak. You know what I'm saying? So they know what's hood. So they bugging in the fact that the United States is throwing them under the bus like that. So, everybody's looking at, the guy they call the president, and they asking him, like, what you going to do? How you going to hook this up? But he's under the jurisdiction of who's paying him. And he don't work for the American people. Nobody works for them. They work for themselves, and they pay master. And eventually, all roads lead to Rome. So, case in point, the Pope now is the one putting out there that when the aliens show up, they got to have a Christian there to baptize, to make them Christians when they meet. You understand? So he's saying that whoever's the ambassador, the Filipino chick, I forget her name, but they made her the ambassador to space. So when the aliens show up for the movie that they want to flip on everybody, he's saying that the Pope or somebody like him got to be there to baptize the aliens and make them Christians upon the meeting. So before you even know if these people want, even if the whole thing was real, let's say, they automatically off the rip got to make you a Catholic. So again, this is not them asking these people. This shows you the level of arrogance and level of the insane need to get something beyond you to conform to you, where this mentality derives from. This is, again, why, people, quote-unquote Catholic people, quote-unquote Jewish people, they're riddled with guilt. You talk to some of these people, they dread going to church and speaking to their people. They live in totally different lives because of this oppressive form of human conditioning. I'm not even going to get into the whole God thing about, worshiping a white God and all that. That's all. We already know all of that. I'm talking now about the human, told that this is taking on the human psyche of the person who's involved in these rigorous mental actions and pursuits of spiritual awareness. When really these things, these earthly things are the exact opposite of that. Like the Islam, our self-lawing master, we was freaking, post-colonialism. It's totally different than the stuff they doing now. So much so that we don't even know. We can only go by what's written. But what's written sometimes is written by people who are a part of certain things, that have to give certain allegiances and have to write certain things into play so that way people like us now in the future are putting this stuff together. We are still getting a slanted view of what happened because this is the type of enemy we are dealing with, man. We are dealing with an eternal beast that has found ways to take the noblest person and reduce their nature to just bestiality. You know what I'm saying? And nobody's exempt. Anybody can fall victim to it. And it usually happens, and sometimes, unfortunately, it happens to those of us that have sometimes the best intentions for things. Because of the fact that money itself is illusionary. So the things that come with it, the more you get with it, you got to be in the concept of where you are and what you knew you were going to do when you got it. So that way when you get it, you're not so overwhelmed by it that you just either sit on it, don't do shit with it, or you just feel like you got to just do it up. Like we're always thrown into extremes here. Whereas in our own indigenous cultures, it was all about balancing ourselves with nature because the premise of the universe was being one with things, The premise of Western society is being one with whatever what everybody else want to do. You know what I mean? And we'll call that democracy, and that's how we'll, all carry ourselves into the future. Yet globalism is the death of culture. It's the death primarily of quote-unquote African or original people, Moorish, indigenous, autochthonous culture. The death of that. Just like the successive movements that came after the so-called civil rights movement. It was not the workers movement. It was the feminist movement, the gay rights movement, the abortion movements. All of these movements came to fruition off the back of the so-called civil rights movement. All of these movements were able to create 501c3s, nonprofit organizations, social service organizations that were in turn connected to the umbrella organization, Planned Parenthood, which again was started by Mengele, one of his students, Margaret Sanger. So in that, we're talking about, again, Nazism being dummied down and redistributed to America and marketed as a mainstream progressivism, which then eventually led to the further erosion of the black community. Because now everything that we were supposed to get, they gave to somebody else. They did the same shit at the beginning of the Civil War. They were supposed to give all of that back to us. Everything was supposed to be ceded back. So what do? They set up the whole liberty thing. You know what I mean? And then started importing slaves from Europe. And then brought that in and then classified them immigrants, again, homesteaders, pioneers, or whatever. And then these are the ones who go on to be people like, Taft and the rest of these dudes. But the people who was bringing them over here to do that were at the same time finding ways to use our straw man and stuff like that as a means to create not only a fictitious history, but then to make us or to get us to become dependent on them spiritually by endowing the black churches specifically that honor the white Jesus as a means of racial progression. The black churches, which were our only sanctuary during the time in which we had to come together when they were terrorizing us, now became the same institutions that were now going to deliver us more pacified through the fact, not only the fact we got the white Christ and the black congregation, but now we got the black Masonic preacher who's a two-headed doctor, who's speaking out of both sides of the space, and is letting us know that, heaven is something that's going to come, and so long as we pay our tithes and, do to him. But then he'll go to a lodge and he can't even say Jesus. He can't even say that name in it. Yet still, you have people out there at the same time doing the same thing we're doing right now, who these people will walk past, just like now, and be like, well, I'd rather give our money to him. I remember the day Jim Baker got caught messing with them boys and cheating on his wife and all that stuff. And I looked at my grandmother, blessed dead, and was like, see, I told you about this dude. Because she was sending him money all the time. Jim Baker, Jim and Tammy Faye. Like thousands upon thousands of black women would be doing. God-fearing church women doing. But I would ask her, hey, can you give me $300 so I could go and study how to work this studio equipment? Because, I like rapping. That shit ain't going to get you nowhere. That shit ain't going to do this. That shit ain't going to do that. So I find in the black community, not only in my family, but other people that I've talked to, that we would have a thing where they would rather, hook up. There's no patronage no more. They'd rather hook up somebody else who's going to look at them like that and do what they want than you, who's doing what you're supposed to do. However, if they didn't do that, then how will we know who we are? And this is what I mean. These are the paradoxes that we don't discuss that are so subtle in physical reality that dictate our lives, man, that we become almost slaves to without even realizing that. Taking shit personal by people we don't even really care about. But at the same time, if you don't, physical reality is such that anything can happen, so you got to prepare. Yet preparing for an action does not mean that you're causing it. And the mode of war that the United States uses now in terms of this preemptiveness has created a situation where they have isolated themselves because now they're the world cop. They've gone from being the world cop to the world bully. You know what I'm saying? Come on. So it's a situation now where it's like totally up in the air. So there's a thing, this dude, Ron Paul, who is what would be considered a worshipful master in the sense that he basically handles himself. He's kind of like his own handler. He don't really have people handler. Like McCain, his handler is Joseph Lieberman. And, so in this, each one got one, but he's one of the ones who kind of do his own thing based on his degree in the Mason shit. But aside from that, he's still down with them. But regardless, he put out a statement and kind of played English. He basically just said that this whole shit basically is the end of the whole kabang. Like, it's over. And that the guy you call the president, these dudes, it's a wrap for them. They done already sold it out. So look for the erosion and the eventual deterioration of the dollar. This is why history is such an important component in understanding these world events and how they affect us, because this would affect us over here in the monetary sense and how they view the dollar internationally. So in order to have more, in order to sustain, the dollar is weaker. So in order for you to be comfortable, you have to have more of them in order to sustain the fact that they don't mean as much. So it's more about now, it's going to turn even more about quantity than quality, which is why the preparation through the hip-hop videos with constantly seeing these dudes with stacks of monies and all of that come into play. This is the gourding of capitalism. But in history, this happened before. This happened again at the end of World War II, when the United States basically had to come over or came over, and instead of redistributing its wealth based upon the fact that it now had to integrate vast sections of the population that were not under its jurisdiction up until that point, they now had to decide, well, what we'll do is we'll build up Europe and set up foreign outposts and bases out there so that way we can internalize and watch our backs, but at the same time have other ways to funnel and get our money popping. So at the time that this happened, the world currency was the sterling. You understand? Sterling silver, or the sterling. So as the sterling was the dominant form of currency, it was not only the world currency, it was the standard national currency of the people of the UK. What this did, the fact that it was a world currency as well as a national currency, the more people in the world used it, the more the people in the nation, when they used it, it was more devalued. Because it became about more of an exporting to keep the empire going than the importing to maintain the security of the people. And so at this time now, through MI6 and through the creation of the OSS, they were able to now create a junction point that they would use to funnel this and bring it all together, and this was called the UN. So in the process of them creating this system, the world system itself had to be restructured. So because it was restructured in such a way, it had to happen over succession of years, which added to the eventual stabilization of the United States as a body politic. But in the process, Britain and the UK went through a crazy time. This is when the IRA was popping. This is when people was really going in against the crown as well as the monarchy, which then meant that they were going really against the Pope and everybody else. Remember, all roads lead to Rome when you're dealing with the devil. So, essentially, because the sterling was so devalued, the dollar came in and then propped the world currency back up. And because it was basically now endowed with all of the so-called industrial might of the bankers and everybody that funneled it all, like Hugo Boss was one of the designers of the uniforms of the Nazis. Like, this is how integrated everybody came with these people who were there, who were literally killing Jewish people and all of that. Some of these people you see every day on TV or in your neighborhood or, you know what I'm saying, in your city board and all of that. They've been doing this. And in almost every culture, and again, everything they do, they then emulate it. So you know that they learn how to do this form of intrigue after, you know, witnessing or helping witnessing how we, in a sense, evolve. So the same thing now is happening with the dollar, in which now the dollar, as the world currency, is now being, in a sense, devalued, which is why they want to come up with the new thing. So they were putting up that they were going to do, the national currency was at one time, a couple of months ago, was viewed as the all world currencies added up as one. These were called NDRs. Then you had another version of that called derivatives. All of that led to the stimulus, which was basically the pads used to resuscitate the body as it's already, you know, flatlined. And now they've created the system in which they want to integrate New Columbia's function and then redistribute how that's seen through the rest of the world. And the healthcare and everything else, the restructuring of everything is kind of them working to put all of these things in motion. So that way, through incrementalism, like everything else they do, you know, it eventually becomes that. So, you know, I can't remember a time that Social Security did not exist, but there was a time that it did. But it's in the realm of my lifetime because it's in the realm of my lifetime, my mother's lifetime, my grandmother's lifetime. Yet they have squandered the protection of their own people, that they now know if their own people know what's going on, it'll be even crazier. And a lot of them do. So what do? They either go try to take these people out or give them money. Yet, at the bottom line of it all, the people that's doing this at the very top happen to be involved in otherworldly activities that procure them to exhaust huge amount of efforts to kill as many people as possible. Go online and check out, type in recent deaths of government officials in Washington. See what come up. At the beginning of this so-called Republican House that's coming in, they terrorized these white boys and white girls into creating the situation that's in there now through the terrorist organization they refer to as the Tea Party, created by a guy named Dick Armey, which is most likely a alias. You know, guy basically philanthropist or a guy who made his money in technologies and IT stuff, wink, wink, and decided to, had loose affiliations with some of these militia patriot movements. And then eventually, saw ways to reconstitute and come up with, what it is, their version of Moorish science, which is or sovereignty law, which is this pseudo Tea Party shit, where they're saying that the government is totally corrupt, yet to get into it, they don't want to necessarily. That's not true. They don't necessarily want to destroy the whole government, but they want to basically get it to be shut down totally, so that way they can go in and reorganize. So again, they will use, the true enemy will use that motivation to couch whatever it wants them to really do once it gets shut down to happen. Because then once it gets shut down, they'll probably just pop all those dudes and then use that interim period to then inject what they want to do and then blame the killing of somebody else and then use that as the premise to make what it is they want to make happen. The same way they do everything. If everything you do is based on death or a fear of death or a fear of something, then everything you do becomes a fearful act. And everything and everybody that helps you do that is then affected with the same fear, which then is noticed and smelt by these entities that is inhabited by these people, who then use it for their ability to do wickedness. So what we call magic is really just something that most people do not understand, yet they witness it every day in the form of science or technology. So it's the old adage, it goes to your state of mind, your perception of reality. If I tell certain people they had a hazing ritual where they would tell the candidate, see this wall, knock it down. And the candidate would go and do everything he could to knock down the wall, run into it for hours, beat himself up, get a hammer, try to break through it, whatever. Then another candidate, and they say, okay, go in and knock down the wall. And he goes in and just literally takes his hand and knocks down the wall. He's the one who gets in. The dude who then killed himself to do it don't. They only respect you if you don't give a damn about them. The more you care, the more they will get you to want to care for them, and then entice you into giving up yourself to them. And when I say them, I'm using them as in lieu of the proverbial they that can be anyone who subscribes to the negative attributes of what it is I'm describing. So I could be the president or anybody on down. And it almost has to be that broad for us all to see the scope of what it is you're really dealing with. You're not just dealing with one aspect of this thing coming at you. You're dealing with all aspects of it coming at you at once, because they understand the science of quantum superpositioning, which is the understanding that you exist in all places at once. And when you experience deja vu, you're experiencing an aspect of yourself being in the same spot that you have always been in all of the lives at the same time. That's why you have a memory of it. And sometimes you share that with other beings in all these other realities, and that's why you'll see somebody and think you know them, because you do. We all know each other. If you can only know what your frequency and is made known to you and what you choose to find out to know. So you can't necessarily hear a dog whistle yet. You got to get the other 98% of the brain functioning to hear that. Yet at the same time, cat can't talk. Dog can't talk. But I've seen dogs try to play the piano, damn near try to juggle, doing crazy things. I've seen animals recently on TV shows and just looking at stuff on the internet, stuff like things that show that this This is a being now. These things are raising in their consciousness, so we have to start to respect them in a certain manner now, even more so than maybe we have. But it's not about loving the damn animal more than you love yourself. You know, that's putting the seed before the dirt. Like, it's great if you got a sack of seeds, but if you in the desert, that shit ain't gonna help you. You know what I'm saying? Everything needs something else to function here. That's the proverbial thing about physical reality. That's the limitation of equality that exists in the realm of the devil. That's why he functions on that level. And when they say that the black woman functions on that level, what they're saying is that she can function from the level of strict materialism if she wants to. And her spirituality gets dumped into intuition. So you could have the illest chicken head out here or whatever, but she be a psychic in knowing, you know, whether or not this dude is cheating on her or not, or whether or not this person said this or her, what about her. Because she may have dreamt it or some other shit, but she don't care about none of what that means, but she used it for what she used it for, whether she realizes it or not. So the same happens to everybody at some time or the other. It's just how we harness it for our own position to allow ourselves to attain that. That's what Arkenton was talking about with the Aten, with the 19 rays. The 19 rays with the hands at the bottom of them with the disc in the front. So it's a thing where we continuously create the reality that we choose to experience, yet our discussion of the material reality in terms of the negative aspects of it at times like this are to not to get acquainted with the negative acts, but to understand the limited nature that they can affect once you understand the root of why it's going on. So it is not to say if you know how the fire started, you can stop the fire, but it is to say if you know how the fire started, you know who's responsible. And nobody want to deal with who's responsible, man. Nobody want to deal with who's responsible. You have certain people who consider themselves or are Caucasian who would rather be in part, who don't even care about anything so long as they can be better than somebody else. You have a lot of black people who feel the same way. Yet the juxtaposition of the two is what's keeping the artificial reality functioning. Because the so-called racism that exists between those two has filtered down or trickled down into how everybody else is. So everybody's a nigger now. Everybody's niggering out on TV. Everybody's cooning themselves out. I've seen commercials where we talked about it yesterday with some good people about the hood rats that they had in the commercial, in the Black Sheep commercial. You know, the hood rats. Then they have car commercials where there's no even people. There's just clothes walking around driving the car. This is how they view the public. That's not advertising. That's post-hypnotic suggestion. That's telling you that you're not even there. They don't even care if you're there so long as you're driving the car. It's not even relevant that you're even alive so long as you buy it. You understand? That's not a society. That's not a culture. There's no such thing as American. American culture is hip-hop. That's it. There's no other culture in America other than hip-hop now. Everything else is just in there. But hip-hop's in everything. Hip-hop, we done sampled every form of music to the point where the vibration of it done slowed down so much now that you've got people who, you know, are questionable about the art form, but, you know, they selling records. And in the perception, if you're selling records, you're good. But nobody's selling records. That's the other side of the story. What's up with that? You know what I'm saying? Niggas doing videos, selling downloads. That's where the money's at. The stuff in the store is to keep the fandom going. So I don't care what you say. There's nothing like having a CD. You know what I mean? Just like there was nothing like having a record. Just like there was nothing like having a tape. Just like there was nothing like having a cassette tape. You know what I mean? So, you know, it all becomes what it's supposed to be eventually. And it's our situation or position to be able to allow ourselves the universal understanding to accept it all for value and literally charge it back by allowing it to take itself out with the comforting notion of the fact that at some point in the future, this whole thing is over. The way that all of the stuff that you don't like about reality, all the stuff you don't like about this country, all the stuff you don't like about your mate or this or that, at some point in the future, you're going to get to a point where it's over. Whether it's over for you, it's questionable, or whether you're down or there when it's really all physically over for everybody. Either way, that means we already won. Their society, what they want to get popping, is supposed to start after. That's why when you do your mental projections, your astral projections, project yourself as far into the future as possible. As far into the past as possible. So that way there's never a position in which you do not exist, astrally. Because time and things like that don't exist there. That's why we don't remember the stuff when we wake up, because the part of us that's there is the part of us, is the 98% of us that is really able to do all types of fantastic things. That's the part of us that's awake doing stuff while the 2% is sleeping. And then when we wake up, that 98% go to sleep, and then the 2% wake up. So then, when you wake up, your dream self, imaginative self, superconscious self becomes the intuitive nature. When you go to sleep, the right brain, logical self, rational, material self becomes the 2% in the superconscious brain or whatever that's not being used. So it's a mirror effect of dualistic reality in the form of micro, bio, luminescent, and cosmic energy being projected through darkness, which allows light to occur, which bends itself around the form of whatever it is we are going to get. So you have some people who can imagine themselves or what their child is going to be like. You know, and then you have some people who, when they have the child, be disappointed, see, because they've embossed their understanding or image on something that was yet to be. And they became so detailed with it that it lost the whimsical aspect it needed to fully congeal in the form that they may have wanted. Like they say, don't thank people too much or they won't believe you. You know, but you're supposed to thank people. You know? Or they say if you don't look at somebody in the eye, you know, you hiding something. You know? And some of these things, those things are called pantomimes. Some of those pantomimes are true. You know? Yet it doesn't necessarily mean that they're true all the time. You know what I'm saying? And you got to be mutable. That's why studying astrology, you know, is good. Because a balance to studying astrology would be like playing chess. You know what I'm saying? Because in the chess move, you're basically, all the pieces are basically done in the astrological aspect anyway. You know, the king and the queen is Jupiter and Saturn, you know. Yeah, Jupiter in Cancer. You know, but essentially when you do the knowledge to it like that, you bring yourself into a form where it's like you're playing tennis with both sides of your mind. And if you can imagine that, you can imagine one side of yourself in, you know, blue and red in your mind, in the hemispheres of your mind, playing this game back and forth. You create a relationship that you can always focus on to bring yourself into balance in meditation. Or maybe you imagine both sides of your mind playing chess, whatever it is. But if you imagine both sides of your mind working together, that is a way to ease into that 98% of the mind that they refer to as junk DNA in eugenesis science, which is modern science. Modern science is based on eugenesis. Therefore, it's based on what they perceive as white supremacy. And because they perceive that, that's what they make people think it is. I'm thinking we can get into some calls. Yeah, we get into one. Please, you want to Super Heru Radio?
Islam, Mo.
Islam, Mo, how you doing, man?
Man, yeah, that's what you call synchronicity. The first time I called in and I got through.
That's what's up.
Yeah, that's what's happening. Peace to you, your queen, and a little more in the side. I have some ambivalence about nationalizing where it applies to driver's licenses. You know, my conundrum is that I'm a truck driver, so naturally I'm operating at a commercial venue.
Right.
So, as well as, that's my first question. Second question is I grew up in Chicago, and I grew up in the area of Jeff Fort and the El Rookie.
Yes, sir.
When it was first brought to me, then they were some dirty Moors. You know, they had, you know, it was hypocritical of them to come to me with
that's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, with the knowledge, and then you know, he's selling weed. You know what I'm saying? And FBI got him on tape.
Yep.
I'm a machine gun.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So
yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So it fell off with me, but I stay in Jacksonville now. You know, up north of me, and I got in contact with some Nuwapians. You know, I know the backstory to Mount New York, and you know, I know how the going to. So,
yes,
know,
sir.
But them being Moors also, you know, I was wondering what you thought about going into that to them.
Well, for your first question, or for your first comment on what you said, thanks for calling, by the way, is I think that, like everything, our so-called species has evolved to the point that we can get blessed with a sacred science or a way to do things and then squander that based on the material necessity, you know, which then erodes the basic nature of the intent of what you may have started to do this for. Because you have some brothers in the street who say shit like, yo, you know what I'm going to do? What we going to do? We're going to go hard in the street and sling for like a year. And then at the end of the year, we're going to take all that money and then go somewhere totally different and then open up a school or some shit.
While at the same time,
and you have brothers, and you have brothers who want to really do stuff like that. However, when you're dealing in the game, you know what I mean? The aim is to win. You know what I'm saying? So that becomes the basis of what you have to do. So this is like those people who say, well, I'm going to become a cop and I'm going to patrol my neighborhood and make sure people are safe. No, you're not. They're going to know what neighborhood you're from and put you in a white neighborhood. First thing. So that way you're not there when the white man is beating up your grandmother or shooting your little brother or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So the road to hell is paved with good intention. But as far as astrology itself, in my view, it is a good science. Some people will call it like a parlor trick or stuff like that because people have used it like that. But in my view and in my practice, it is a valuable tool in understanding the subtleties of how different energies work. So long as you're the type of person where you can not allow your ego to dictate, not to think, okay, let's say if you know how to do somebody's chart. There's some astrologers who will do somebody's chart and think or act like they know the person or what they could do based on what this chart is, but you don't know what this person's reality is. You don't know what this person is in their heart. You just know the aspect. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, your intent.
Yes, and your intent. So long as your intent is good, it's actually a good tool to help you do that. That's why Noble Jew Ali, Benjamin Bay, this is a science of the Moors. So I'm not going to necessarily refute it, but I will say that it has been exploited in our, let's say, community, unfortunately, where you have people who have used it as an intelligence tool to act like they know people or figure out what they're going to do and shit like that. You know what I mean? Some people don't want people to know what their chart is and stuff like that. You know, that type of stuff you got to watch out for.
Yes, sir.
As per your second question. Look,
right.
Go ahead.
No, yeah, with the driver's license. And
say that again?
Keeping the, having that nationalization line going through the Wapians, and then, having this dilemma I have with being a truck driver, and nationalizing, yet still being under that, jurisdiction of commercial driver's license, with the excise tax and all that.
The jurisdiction can be exacted by notice or special appearance. So if you come up in there impropriet persona and special appearance and you note that I'm here as a special appearance, that means they don't get those. And more sometimes forget to declare that when they come in, because a special appearance means that in their fiction shit has to stop. You know what I'm saying? Like they hear it as stop. They don't hear it like you just coming in there. They come in there when they say you hear, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's a code in their shit. You know what I mean?
That paperwork should precede you.
Yes. So that way when you get there, they're trying to get you out, as opposed to when you get there, you having to then show and prove then who you are. Like if they already know who you are, you see what I'm saying? Then when you get there, it should just be them just giving you paperwork to sign so you can be out. They shouldn't be there trying to keep you there, you having to wait for an appearance and all that other shit. You should just be able to walk up in there, regardless of who's doing what. Be like, well, yeah, excuse me, I'm here on the special appearance. You call me, blah, 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 blah. Niggas do shit like that, then it's like, oh, well, I'm going to hold you in contempt. Then you'd be like, oh, well, I'm sorry, or I apologize for that, magistrate, but I'm here on the special appearance, blah, 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 blah. So long as you keep apologizing, you're not in dishonor. You know what I mean? They can't cite you for nothing. And all you got to do is say, I apologize, and go right back into what you were saying.
Right.
So even if they try to overtalk you, you stay in honor. The object, once you're there, is to stay in honor. But really, it shouldn't even deteriorate to that. It should just be, this is who I am. Okay, this is who you are. Sorry we gave you a wrong summons. Boom. Then what you're supposed to do is make a notation through affidavit that you had this experience with them. They realize that they did not have jurisdiction. Then send them something where they got to sign that to you and then send it back through the mail. So then now you got a witness in their own system that says that you are already not in their jurisdiction. Since they have a unified court system, that means that all systems comply under the same system. So if one branch got it, they all got it. Notice to agent is notice to principal. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Hey, and so you're saying, being, in the position that I'm in, I should, you continue, operation, because I have to in the system and handle it accordingly, when I do run across a problem. Yeah, what?
I think you just from now on, you know what I'm saying, you create an affidavit, like we can do any type of affidavit we want. Like we don't always have to be regaled to affidavits of truth, affidavits of this. You could do an affidavit of self-awareness. You could do an affidavit of spiritual oneness with the Creator. and submit that as a declaration. How they gonna say they got jurisdiction over that? How they gonna prove in law that they got jurisdiction over you and God? You understand what I'm saying?
Brother, I appreciate your consistency. I'm a very good judge of character, man, and you don't contradict yourself. And
thank you, brother.
I talk to these brothers, out here, and this, it's the circular pattern of life in this rat race that keeps people out of, really, doing what they have to do, and the mind doesn't have a filter, and when people listen, I can see how, some people could flip it and try to start a new religion because it's like you say, it's cathartic.
Yeah, God, that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
They want to start a new religion instead of getting free. They'd rather be in a new form of consciousness, a new freedom, in a new form of earthly pleasure than be free.
Yeah, Matria shit. I think they want to bring in Matria or something like that. It's some type of.
That's this nigga. That's president right here.
Right.
In the class we got coming up, I got a picture of him as the Matria. I got one of him. They already got this new tools up. 2 months before he started running for president here, they had him out. They had dressed up as this dude with a beard as Christ. He looked like Joseph in the manger scene in the Jesus story.
Hey, say, look out, God. I'm gonna let you get on to your next call, but I'm gonna take you email. I got your email address, and I got my DJ moniker from you, man. It's gonna be Jax Morak. How about that?
That's nice. I like that, bro. That's nice.
I appreciate you, man. Love and peace to you, man. Hold it down.
To you, brother. I'll speak to you soon.
Take care.
Peace. Okay. 304, you on Super Heru Radio?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, King. How you doing, man?
All right, how you doing, King?
I'm good, Lord. How you?
Good to talk to you, Elder. Doing good. I was thinking about something you said with the Hugo Boss thing. Ain't that 2 S's on the end of the brother's name?
I think it was like Boss, like, you know how they have the Stein or Shazinski, it was like some like Polish type of thing.
Oh,
but yeah, he shortened it. Just like Michael Douglas is here and Nazi and all of that. Like a lot of these dudes, Humphrey Bogart, all these guys.
Man, you know something the other day though, I was out and I had an interaction with one of the light skinned, brethren or beings or presences or whatever of life. I was like, wow, man, that was Nazi. And that was weird to me because that's how I described the interaction I had with him, because I came in peace, and I left in peace, as much peace as that I still had after whatever that happened there. But I didn't go into a conversation about how I was feeling, but I'm sure that my tone kind of reflected a little bit of the ignorance that I was receiving from the brother. But, whatever happened. I also wanted to ask you, you said something about 1,000-year reign was about to happen, brother. I'm feeling like that already happened, because it's been so much that's happened. I'm like, Duke ain't going to have no more problems. My family ain't going to have no more problems either, as well as his. We got to be past that. That 1,000-year reign must have already happened, or it's like we're on the last day of it. Like yesterday was the last day.
Yeah, right. Like right now and shit. No, you're right. But no, what I think I was referring to was that what they refer to as the 1,000-year rising is also what they refer to as the 1,000 points of light. Like they're both the same thing. So when Bush was talking about the 1,000 points of light, he was talking about the 1,000-year light, because it was like however many thousand days, I forget the number, it was a couple of thousand days since Hitler made the same declaration. And coincidentally, he made that speech on September 11th, 2000. No, yeah. Was it September? Was it 2000? No, it was like 1990 or some shit. So almost like 11 years later, you know what I'm saying, it's 2011, they flip their ritual. So whether it's coincidence or not is irrelevant. What I do know is that all of these niggas is puppets. So the only way I see people aren't puppets is when they refer, like once somebody tells me what they are, I deal with them like that until they show me something else. So if you're telling me you're a fireman, then I'll assume you know about fireman shit. So if I talk about fireman shit, right, and you don't know what I'm talking about, then what that says to me, without me saying anything to you, is that you're not really a fireman. You see what I'm saying? This is how we used to talk to people. You know what I mean? Like when census people come around, black people don't never tell census people how many people live in the house. We have 18 people in the crib. Only one person go to the door. Or we only let the census person in or whoever in when everybody else not home. Like we instinctively know how to deal with everything. The problem now is that all these niggerized white people are broke and they don't know how to deal in a system where they're not dominant. So they are now trying to rapidly integrate into us to get us who are going to be the ones to be able to know how to run shit because we know how to deal with shit with no money.
I don't mean
you know what I'm saying?
I don't mean to cut you. Are they just going to, like, force us into something? They just going to bum rush us? This is the plan?
Well, no. What I'm saying is
coming
that
to dinner. I'm coming. I'm going to marry your daughter. You're going to force you in? Silly.
But I'm saying they're going to try to do that eventually when all else fails. But until then, they're going to use the smoke and mirrors, the little killings here and there, the little rituals, whatever, because they haven't done something that has unified everybody. Like a year to the day that Oscar Grant got killed, his best friend who was with him the night that got killed got shot in a block of where Oscar Grant got killed. That ain't no coincidence. You know? Yet and still, people are looking at these things as isolated incidents because really nobody in the black community, that's not true. There are people in the black community who want to do shit, but it is to say that we have not unified to the point to know what to do in case this person who do shit don't work. It's like once this dude tries something and they kill him or get rid of him, the whole movement's done. Then we all go back to work, and then we all have kids, and then we all, some people, kids become correction officers or whatever. This has been the cycle since integration. So we are the last generation, really, that not only created hip-hop now, we're the ones that are going to see what it's going to become in terms of the new thing. It's already American culture, so it's world culture. So that means that no matter where you are on the planet, nigga, if you know a Dr. Dre song, you can tell them niggas you Dr. Dre and they'll treat you like a king. They'll treat you like a king, nigga. Especially if you fucking crip walk or some shit, these niggas will look out. Just yesterday, son, some chick stopped from Switzerland. It was like, no, you're not Snoop Dogg. I'm like, no. I said, but if I had $1, so every time somebody told me that shit, I'd have my own school by now. But regardless of that, she still wanted to take a picture with me. She was like, oh, my God, I know you do something. She said, I know you do something. There's something that you do that the world knows about. This is what this white bitch is, this is what she's telling me.
Yo, Callie and Allah, they got that spirit in her of recognizing something in you that's eternal because you've been that before, you're that now, and you're that in the future. I got two other things, brother, because I know everybody want to get on the phone. I got two more things. I saw a commercial that said something interesting. I want you to break it down for me. I saw a commercial about the post office. It's the new one that they're running. And they talking. They telling us, yo, the post office is all good. We don't charge you nothing to do it, and we bring you your mail. And then at the end of the commercial, it's two people there, and it's a bell in the middle, the Philadelphia bell thing with the crack in the middle. And guess what?
Yeah.
On the left side of your screen, you got the white sister. On the black side, you got the black brother. What's up with that, dude? Just break it down. I don't got no hate for nothing.
That's the logo. That's the symbol of this. You know when you see, like, the image of, like you got the flag of, like, New York, right? So it's blue, white, and orange. and then in the middle, on the white part, in blue, is an outline position of like some like trees or whatever on either side, and then on either side, like you said, there's a black person, and there's like a native, a Moor, and then like a white pioneer, like Puritan type dude, and then in the middle is the land or whatever, and then there's like the sun or whatever. That, what they refer to as the seal of New York State, is the actual demon of the entire state. The ritual that they did when they created that image, they embossed it with the entities ritualistically, satanically, of all of whatever they was trying to do when they initiated the enterprise. And the image of the sacrifices was, again, the black slave who is a prisoner of war, who is a noble Moor, and the white slave who is now on the other side with the sometimes they have a shield with a double cross on it. You know what I mean? With like a cross with two levels on it. That's the Jesuit connection. They showing you that they using these two archetypes as the means to create the destruction of the New World. And this is the demon now that goes on all New York State documentation and everything else, that everybody now, when you become part of the state now, you got to wear a badge with the same demon face and shit on it. You see what I'm saying? That's you with the same energy. That's why after a while niggas who become cops all look the same. They all shave their head. They all even just bald, and they're all alcoholics. You know what I'm saying? They live in double lives. And it's not to say that all cops is bad people. It's just to say that when you put yourself in a position to be around bad people, you can't get mad if you start to become an asshole.
My second question.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. Excuse me. My second question for you, not even a question, it was more of a comment. I had to go into the court to pay a ticket or to see about a ticket, but I wasn't doing the speed that they said, and I had said it to, coincidentally, the black lady that was the secretary for the white cops, the white area. I live in West Virginia. Wow. So anyway, I had to go there, and there was a black girl there, and I happened to know her from when I went to school here for a little bit. I went to mad different states and schools growing up, but I went to here to school a little bit too, so I knew her. She knew me. So anyway, she gets on her phone and texts the cop. I didn't even know this was happening because it happened in like 3 minutes. But she texted the trooper, whoever that pulled me over, and he said something about letting it be reduced, but nobody was there to sign it. Then a cop came in or something, and she asked that cop to sign it. Funny thing, I always talk about how the jails that they built for ourselves and our fathers, they're going to go into. This cop comes in, and he's talking about it. He's like, talking about signing the ticket or whatever, but he don't got no problem with doing it. And he says in a joking way, but he was so serious, he said, I don't mind signing it. I know I'm going to prison anyway. Did you hear what I just said, brother? He said that in front of me. I've been saying that for a couple of years. Prison anyway. He said he knows he's going to prison anyway. And I was like, wow, why did he say that? Because I'm in there quiet. I got my phone on the table because I'm trying to have a spiritual shield between the drama because, anyway, you know the reason for that. But they say that, and I'm like, whoa, because I don't got no more paperwork or nothing. But that cop said, I know I'm going to prison anyway. So I know Allah Cali just had that be said in front of me to give me a confirmation. Because that was wild. That was so different. He got to do that because they know that that's the ultimate goal. The goal is to get black people to be used to living in jail, where they basically create the new Supermax jails got men and women. It's co-ed. They want you to have babies in jail. They want you to be able to record records in jail. They want to create a jail mentality where they just farm you out, specific ones who rise to the top of whatever the herd is, and then they use those to seed up the gene pool to keep them from he was talking about himself.
Dying.
He was talking about himself. He's talking about
I'm talking about that's the final solution. I'm saying with him specifically, he know that the end game for these cop niggas and these army niggas is that they're going to shoot them or lock them up too. Because they more of a threat. The black cops and the white and the black servicemen and these people are more of a threat than the poor white trash ones. Because the poor white trash ones will still fight for America so long as they can be white. It's a white thing. It's a mentality that still exists. Even in this amalgamated hip hop, we all the same, whatever. We all, we white girl mob, we saying nigga and all of that. There's still an aspect of it to the point a little 7-year-old girl on Facebook did a poem about saving the black family. Ain't nobody putting that on CNN. Ain't nobody putting that on Fox. She went in talking about the black man and the black woman together. But niggas don't want to hear that. The women want to be right. The men just want to be able to do their thing. Nobody just like, yo, we going to hold this down however it is. I don't agree with you. I don't like you. But you black, and we going to work together. You know what I'm saying? That shit don't exist. It exists when you find it yourself, like me with you. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, is who you could have that with. And that's not everybody, especially some of these black people. Because sometimes what I would find was when I would be in DMV and shit like that, I would go sometimes to white people because I know that the white people ain't going to hate on me for the whole feathers and the beads in the hair shit. They're going to be more caught up. So I'm going to be able to just do my thing. Well, I'm going to get to this old black woman who's been here for 20 years who, you can tell, she upset. I'm here smiling, shining, knowledge yourself with this woman. She talking about I'm here to, rescind this or take this out. It's like, oh, you think you special. It's like, oh, it's one of these bitches. That's when I started to realize that maybe I don't own this shit. Maybe I don't own this straw man. Maybe it's more of a partnership thing. And then when I started researching that, I found a statute that supported that. So now it's a vested interest. You can't lock me up or do nothing negative to me because I'm the one with the controlling interest on the fucking paper. And the society run on paper, nigga. It don't run on money. It run on paper and guns. So, so you gotta protect. You can't lock me up. You gotta just give me a piece of paper so I can write this off. That's it. So again, I'm not necessarily saying people need to. I'm not an advocate of anything. I'm an advocate of whatever anybody want to do. If you feel you can get to UCC and do that, I can help you do that. For real. If you don't want to do that and do it another way, I know how to do that too. For real. But only if you show me your level of involvement. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Can I tell you?
I had to do one time, real quick. I had to do one time, asked me to help him do the paperwork, whatever. He paid me in what was $400 turned out to be. 2 of them shits was counterfeit.
No.
Yep.
Wow.
Mhm. What were you gonna say?
Nah, I just wanted to tell you all thank you because one day last year you all said something about if you ever in a bind or something, call on Cali in your mind, and I guarantee you everything will be fine. You said something like that, and I was like, wow, I'm gonna remember that. So I was playing ball one day, and homie was just really trying to stress me, man. I don't know what the problem was, but he was really trying to give me it. And I called on Cali in my mind, and I just happened, I didn't even necessarily know it at the time, but my teammate on the team that I was playing with, one of them was from California, and come to find out they had to play later. Those two, the guy on the other team that was trying to stress me and that same guy, later on in the game got into it because of some type of foul situation, and then he really, anyway, man, thank you for that, man, because it really hit me when it was Cali that the dude ended up getting into it with because I called on Cali in my mind to do something for me in this situation.
And then she jumped right into this dude. She jumped right into this dude. She's like, I've been waiting to flip on some ignorant earth nigga right now and just let this lump this dude up on some spiritual aspect for you shit. And that's the type of thing we can do. Like, we can do stuff like that. You could do that with Anubis. You could do that with anybody. And whatever it is in you kicks in the central nervous system, uploads through the thing, and then whatever that is manifests around you, just like in the airbender and all that shit. So thank you, brother.
Hey, thank you, brother. You are appreciated. Peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Peace. Wa alaikum salam, brother. Peace. You on Superhero Radio? Can you hear me? 78. Can you hear me? On Super Radio?
I pressed the wrong button. Sorry about that, brother.
That's all right, bro. You on Superhero Radio?
Yes. Greetings, Brother Aseer.
Greetings, Queen. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Greetings to you and the Empress and your son as well, the Prince.
Thank you,
I've been listening to you. You're welcome. I've been listening to you and enjoying the knowledge that you're dropping on us, and
thank you.
I feel very privileged to be a part of your Blog Talk Radio, and I feel very honored that I'm here in the planet in this time, and to hear you going in deep as you are.
Thank you.
The purpose of my call is I would like to get a consultation and some legal stuff that I'm dealing with in Ohio, and also and some astrological aspect and angles. And so I would like to know if you can take my number down and call me sometimes this week if it's possible, please. So
do you have
arrange.
Do you have an email?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Can you email me your number? Or you could text.
I tried emailing you in the past at houseofl at hotmail.com, and my email never went through. So I was wondering, why I had difficulties with that.
You could try it again, or if you can, try it again. It should work now, because at the time we were having problems with our system based on some stuff that was happening. But try it again, and then detail this conversation so I remember, and then I'll definitely contact you and we can handle it. I appreciate you.
Yeah, so I will try again with that email, and if it doesn't go through, then next week I'll contact you again and okay. All right. Thank you so much. I'm just so glad to see that you're building on this foundation. It is great that you're building the way you're building, and you're helping us to build individually as well as collectively. Eventually, I believe that collectively we'll come together, and we'll have a strong foundation in which to build on for our children, especially the future generation. As one brother said, said, forget the old people. Let's think about the children and the youths of tomorrow, because the old people, they have no more strength. The children are the ones with the strength right now. I mean, no disrespect to the elders, of course, but the children are the ones with the strength. And so, that's why we have to get them while they have the strength, so we can bring them into building a nation or even building individually. And so later, collectively, maybe we might be able to have the nation that we all long for. So I just want to thank you for the work you're doing, the foundation you're laying down. I want to thank you and the Empress, because I know that it takes a strong sister, a goddess like that sister to stand by a God man like you and the Prince. So give thanks to Sia and continue doing your work.
Thank you, Queen. I'll speak to you soon.
You're welcome.
Peace.
Peace and love.
Peace to the family. That's really, really nice. Stuff like that really helps. It really does, more than you know. But anybody that wants to holler at us about the upcoming class we have coming up in August, please email me at houseofl@hotmail.com, and I'll definitely send you the flyer for it. And for those people involved in the current ecclesiastical law class, thank you for participating. You know, anybody that wants to come in at the tail end, they still can. You'll still get what's going on. Because the object is to empower with the information so that way you can know the origin of it, so that way you have a greater ability to assess how it's being processed by you, how it's going to be processed by you, and what to do with it, you know. So, with all of the astrological and astronomical things that are happening, you know, it's also about creating the space to allow the mind to flourish past the material. That's why you have both. To focus on one more than the other is maladapted. The way to freak it is to be able to deal with both with equality. You know, because positive elevation always corrects errors. You know, and anybody that wants to see or purchase some of the materials that we had and some of the catalogs that we've been able to amass, you can check it out at www.aseerthedukeoftears.com. Again, that's www.aseerthedukeoftears.com. Also, anyone that wants to holler at us about any lectures or shows or anything like that, you can check it out. Also, we have an album on iTunes called The Birth Record under Aseer the Duke of Tears, as well as Selena the Empress of 10,000 Years.
And definitely, if anybody has any personal issues right now, I do want to say that Aseer's psychic abilities are popping right now. So definitely give him a call if you guys want any readings, tarot readings, or anything else. I do them as well, but really in terms of just the trust and consistency that Aseer has built with the people, I do want to personally advertise the services and let you guys know I really appreciate just the feminine energy that has been really honest and really consistent in being able to build and bring forth truth. So give thanks to all the women out there that have supported, and men. But for me, as sister, I want to give thanks for just all the insight that you provided our family. All right? Ashe.
Indeed. You know, and all things, of course, are always confidential because that's the purpose. As opposed to, you know, trying to start religions and all of that. Like, we already have one, you know. So, and it's us. You know what I'm saying? So we got to get to the point that we all agree that that's what's going on, at least to be able to have a means of actual discourse where we see things come from it, you know. So, you know, it's really, again, about how we perceive what's going on more so than what's going on. Because the more you bust it down, the least likely it is to affect you. You know what I'm saying? And the least likely you ought to be emotionally affected because the emotional attachment is what draws the event to you. You know what I'm saying? So that's why they make movies emotional for a reason. Draw you in to make the experience home. So that way you go home and dream about it and then bring the experience again further into reality for them at the detriment of yourself and your own happiness. So coupled with, like I said, the historical aspects of what's going on, astrology, natural history are great tools to be able to do that. A good book that people can get is a book called The Farthest Shore by Don Gifford. Another good book is, again, The Moorish Quran by Noble Jew Ali. You can also get a book called Rebels, Pretenders, and Imposters by a guy named Clive something. There's another good book called The Astrological Karma of the United States of America by S.G. Van Al. There's another old book everybody's probably read, but if you haven't, it's good to check out, called America's Secret Destiny by a guy named who calls himself Hieronymus. Another good book is Blacks Before America by Hyman. You can check out Gods from Outer Space by Eric von Daniken. Also, Unexplained Faces in Old America by Alexander von Wutenau. Also, check out in terms of novels, Black Boy. And another novel you can check out by a guy named James Rollins called Black Order, which is basically an allegorical story about the Thule Society, which is another allegory of the Hydra Society that you see in the movie Captain America, which they showed in the comic book that the original Captain America was a black man named Isaiah Bradley, who was part of the Tuskegee experiment. There's a comic book you can get on that called The Truth. The art isn't that good. Well, it's not true. Kyle Baker's a good artist, but I think they could have made it more, mythic looking, but you know how they do. But long story short, definitely check us out. Holler at me about the new classes coming up for August at houseofl@hotmail.com. Also, www.aseertheducateers.com. Also, www.sagasar.com. Also, www.crewroyalty.com. Also, shout out to Academy of Cosmophysics and everybody who's doing the knowledge. So, inshallah, we'll build soon. And we'll see you Friday. Oh, dope. I got 58 seconds left. That seems like we actually have more time coming out of 9 and 9:30. It's interesting. But, to recap, the debt thing is basically going to fall into disarray probably after what they perceive 2014. But eventually the goal is again to demolish the United States into a third world country and isolate those soldiers that exist in those countries. What they want to do is isolate those soldiers by keeping them in a form of military servitude called stop loss, where they keep them through extended time to keep them subjugated, So in that, it's definitely not cool. So essentially, respect to those who have come home from that, and inshallah, you're okay. So with that, we say peace, and we'll speak to you soon. Friday.